Welcome to another episode of One on One with Mitch Lafon. I am your host, Mitch Lafon. Joining me this week, probably one of the greatest frontman in rock and roll, though people go, oh, well, Ronnie James Dio, Rob Halford, and they sometimes forget his name, but you cannot, should not forget the one, the only, Dee Snider of Twisted Sister. I had a chance to speak to Dee recently, a good 45-minute interview, and then I got a chance to hang out with him at the Harley show in Montreal at the Bell Center. Joining me to discuss all things Dee this week is guitarist Joel Hoekstra from Whitesnake. Good day, Joel.
Hey, how you doing, Mitch? Thanks again for having me, man.
Yeah, and I got the name right.
I believe you did, sir. Congratulations.
See?
The check is in the mail.
I sat in the corner and repeated your name 500 times as promised, and I got it. So there you go. But Dee Snider, all jokes aside, to me, one of the greatest frontmen. I don't think he gets recognized as much as he should. You know, when they make those top 10 lists, they put a bunch of great vocalists, and they put a bunch of this and that, and people that, you know, were the flavor of the month, but they forget Dee a lot. And when you go to a Twisted show or a Dee Snider solo show like I was at this weekend, he takes a crowd that is sitting there, uninterested, half asleep, and he turns them into these wild, crazy... I mean, he just whips everybody into a frenzy, and that's what a frontman should do. So what is your thoughts on Dee?
Yeah, well, I totally agree with you, man. He's extremely charismatic and a great guy.
Yeah.
And I saw Twisted Sister open for Dio, and I think I was in like 7th grade and something like that, 8th grade maybe, but I got 7th row tickets right up front, and I remember thinking, wow, this guy's totally incredible. And now years pass, and of course, Dee ended up joining the cast of the Broadway show Rock of Ages that I played guitar for the last 6 years. So I had an opportunity to work with him a bit in that, which is one thing, because he's playing a character, and it didn't really let Dee be Dee. He was playing somebody else. And then I had an opportunity to work with him in his Dee Does Broadway band a little bit, and then an isolated show in his solo band, and those were great, and I was really like, man, what a great frontman. But where it really hit me, because I didn't have to concentrate on my guitar at all, was just recently I went over to catch Twisted Sister at the Best Buy Theater right down the street from Rock of Ages. And it was just a real treat. They put me side of stage, and just a great opportunity to not have to look down at my guitar, be worried about remembering how to play any songs or anything like that, to just watch Dee do his thing. And I was just like, man, this guy is on fire. Like, he's still at the top of his game, which is amazing. And I told him that flat out. I said, dude, you're one of the best frontmen of all time. There's just no question. It's totally awesome.
And he's in his 60s, and he's probably healthier than you and me combined. I mean, the guy he looks good, he sounds good, and he really just knows how to work a rock show. I mean, is it a total pro business approach? He gets in there, he knows what the fans want to hear, he makes no false illusions of, let me bore you with my new album for 45 minutes and then play 2 songs, you know, in the encore. He gives people what they want all the time.
No, I was, again, happy to have the interview in advance and be able to just go ahead and listen to you and Dee go through it, and just to hear him talk about how he's clear-minded and able to connect and hypersensitive to everything the audience is feeling. What a great statement. And because it not only shows that he cares about being a professional, but that he cares about the fans. Like, he's up there thinking about the fans, not necessarily what he's going to get off on. He's not a front man coming from the approach of like, well, man, I don't care. Yeah, I got their money already. I'm just going to go out there and do what I want to do. I think he's genuinely concerned, and he really wants to give fans their money's worth. And that's, again, one more reason why this dude is the real deal and one of the best out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, and you'll hear in the interview, we talk about his performance at the Heavy Montreal Festival this past August, 2014. And a lot of the talk backstage with sort of, the press, the local press and other people back there was like, Oh, Twisted Sister, pff, one of those bands from the 80s, blah, blah, who cares? And then they went out and watched the show, and afterwards they came back and they were like, oh, oh, now, okay, now we get it. And he just has that ability to change you from a naysayer into a full believer within an hour's performance. And not a lot
Yeah.
of people can do that.
Yeah, he's got no shortage of confidence, and that's actually just a beautiful thing. You know, it's one of the charming things about Dee when you're around him is that he makes you feel confident when you're on stage with him because he's so totally confident in himself. It's almost like everything that happens with the band is just going to be irrelevant because he's going to go out and kick so much ass. So that inspires me as a player too. To when I have had the opportunity to play with him to just go, all right, man, let's fire it up. This guy's ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, you were out recently at NAMM and you played with scrap metal and you did a bunch of stuff like that. We'll get into that, but first, why don't we just listen to Dee and then we'll come back and we'll hear some of your NAMM stories and of course your time with the Randy Rhoads. Do you want to call that a tribute band that was out at NAMM, or how do you want to call that?
No, it's an event. It's an event put on by the Rhoads family and Brian Tishy and Joe Sutton called Randy Rhoads Remembered. Yeah.
Yeah, that great event. I saw some of the videos on YouTube, and it's just like, ugh, I gotta move out to California. I can't keep missing those kind of great jams and festivals and events. And hey, you know, but let's sit back here and listen to the one, the only frontman of Twisted Sister, Dee Snider. Let's start with this. You're coming in to do the Harley show in Montreal. It's just you, not Twisted Sister. Tell me a little bit about that, because I know you do some shows with Twisted and some shows without. How do you decide? How do you put that together?
Well, situation like this, you know, people are hiring Dee Snider for, and it's not a full-blown concert experience.
Right.
So I tend to do these things. It's almost borders on a corporate gig, which I do as well,
right.
Where I'll go out and it's usually these corporate gigs. A lot of times are all these frontmen from all these different bands. I remember doing one with, it pops in my head, Tone Loc, Lou Gramm.
Okay. Hey, that's a good one.
Who else was there? The singer from Smash Mouth, the singer from The Fix, me. It was like holy shit. It was like Night Ranger. Night Ranger was playing in total. So I mean, you know, so when these opportunities come up, you know, they reach out and they look to hire. It's not something where they can hire the whole band. It's not cost effective.
Right.
So they invite me to be as a personality to come in.
Yeah, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Now, the other great thing about Montreal this year is you came in and did the Heavy Montreal Festival, and the festival just announced that Faith No More is coming for the 2015 version. Tell me a little bit about that. How was it? Because I know you flew in from, I think it was Belgium the night before. I don't think you slept at all, and then you killed it.
Yeah, ego's a powerful tool, man. Yeah. It's a powerful fucking thing. You know, if we come into these things and it's always been with Twisted. There's people who are believers, and there's always a good amount of naysayers. And the heavier metal the concert is, the greater the group of naysayers are.
Right.
So when you've got a lineup of Metallica, Slayer, Anthrax, you know, three of the big four, you know that the majority of the crowd are going to be going, what the fuck is Twisted Sister doing here? And we know damn well what we're doing here. We know damn well that we were part of the original, we were the American arm of the original new wave of British heavy metal in the early 80s. Mm-hmm. Fucking, when we came back to the States with the Can't Stop Rock and Roll, people thought we were English. Right. We came from England. We came out of England with everybody else. We know why we, you know, toured with Maiden and toured with Metallica and toured with bands like that, because we're the original hair metal band, but there was no hair metal bands when we started. There was no Motley and no Rat. There was none of these people. It was Twisted Sister, this oddball fucking freak show who was a sledgehammer of a metal band and dressing up and looking weird. It became known as hair metal, and became defined, and any band that wore, costumes and makeup became a hair metal band, and that's when the whole game changed. But so the point is, we go into these situations knowing full well we not only deserve to be there, but we're one of the few that should be, and we have set out to just prove everybody wrong, and that's what we did in Heavy Montreal, and that's what we've done every single place we play, every festival we play. Jaws drop. And they go, what the fuck are these old bastards doing?
Yeah.
They're schooling not only the bands from their era, but they're who are old and out of shape. They're schooling the young bands who are young and out of shape. So, it was a pleasure to go up there and get to play for a Canadian audience. Twisted, it's always been per capita. Canada's been our biggest country in the world, and anytime we've gone up to Canada, the audience has just been rabid. And we get to do what we do. And honestly, though it's not what we're known for best, it's what we do best.
Right.
What we are best at is playing live, writing songs, having hit records or good albums or whatever that may be. We are first and foremost a live entity.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the reason why you're playing the Harley show this weekend is because of that Heavy Montreal appearance. I think a lot of people showed up and went, oh, okay, right?
And we are the real deal, and it's great. And being a biker, these conventions have and a biker from the northeast of the United States, where just like in Canada, you've got that short 6-month riding season. These January events, February events have been that like oasis in the middle of the doldrums of the non-riding season, which reconnects us to the biker community, reconnects us to motorcycles in general that have been sitting in our garages, getting dusty, and just reminds us, hang on, it ain't going to be too long till you're back out on the road, So I've always loved going to these conventions. I've appeared at a lot of them. Maybe the first time I'm actually singing and appearing at one.
Yeah, no, this one's really great. Last time we spoke, we were talking about your book, Shut Up and Give Me the Mic, A Twisted Memoir by Dee Snider. That story, and I really, it was a compelling read, incredibly compelling read. Just tell me a little bit more about your wife, Suzette. I mean, you've been with her since about 1980, 81?
I married her in 81, but we met in 1976, and we've been living together since 1977.
Yeah, it's very atypical, right? Because Rockstar, which is incredible. It's a very atypical story. Rock stars are supposed to have 37 girlfriends, 18 wives. How did you not just get caught up in that whole 1980s, we're not going to take it moment and just go crazy?
You know what? It's one of the places as a young man I had an odd wisdom about finding someone who loved me for me before I knew I'd become famous. She didn't love me. She loathed me.
Right.
She wanted nothing to do with me, which made me say, this is the perfect girl. I had nothing going for me, as you know from the book. Nothing. Yeah. She just thought I was a nice guy. And I've turned that into a 38-year relationship. And in the 80s, that's when I became a megalomaniac. And as I said in the book, I nearly destroyed everything. I destroyed my band, I destroyed my relationships, and we nearly wound up in divorce because I wasn't a nice guy anymore. And it wasn't a matter of cheating on her or anything like that. It was just becoming just so full of myself and so caught up in my own shit and believing my own hype that, you don't want to hear anybody telling you no. And anybody, and that's been a major job for Suzette over the years, is to be the one who says, no, that doesn't look good, or no, that doesn't sound, whatever. And she's not always right. I want to point that out. She didn't like, we're not going to take it. I'm just pointing that out. But she is right a lot. A good 95% of the time, and she's always been a really great sounding board for me. My first, line of defense, and always supports me. Even if I say no, well, I'm doing this anyway, she'll say, well, all right, well, this is how we can make you're the best at that we can, you know, and always try to, and whether it's with costumes. I mean, I just did my rock and roll Christmas sale in Chicago, and she did hair, makeup, and wardrobes.
Right.
Wardrobe for the show, and got incredible. She got some of the best reviews actually of the show from the mainstream media. You know, her work on that. So she's just always been there for me. But you know what? We may have spoken about this. I don't know when we spoke or have not, but I was talking with Kevin Bacon and interviewing. You know, I do radio, and I was interviewing. And I said, Kevin, you know, you have a long relationship with Kira. Right. You know, what do you think? What do you attribute to that? You know, he said, you know, Dee, I don't think there's any more or less successful marriages in the entertainment industry. You just don't hear about the successes, only the failures.
Right.
And at that point, I started to think about it, and I started putting a list together. It is fucking long, man. It is a long list, and I'm going to print it somewhere sometime, of successful entertainment relationships in rock and roll and in theater and in movies, and it's impressive. And he's right. You don't hear about John Bon Jovi and his wife. You don't hear about Bono.
Alice
and
Cooper.
his wife,
right.
Alice Cooper, and his wife. We're all over 30 years, man.
Wow.
I mean, and then there's the second tier of people like, you know, Brad Whitford and Tom Hamilton and Dennis Dunaway from Alice Cooper, who's still married to Neil Smith's sister, who was the Tooth. And she was the fucking Tooth, the dancing Tooth. She was the costume designer for the band, and they wound up getting married. So, I mean, and those relationships, you talk about 40 years. You know, so the Paul Newmans and Joanne Woodwards and the Mel Brooks and the Anne Bancrofts, you know, they're little mention of these relationships. It's it's only the fantastic flare-ups and blow-ups and failures. So, you know, I'm proud of my relationship, and and I think that it stands out. But at the same time, I don't want to sit there and say we're the only ones. It actually turns out that a lot of us, just nobody ever cares. It's just not interesting.
Yeah, it's strange. It's too bad though, because
look at fucking Keith Richards and Patty Hansen. That's her name, right? Patty Hansen. Yeah. They're still married. They've been married 30-something years. He was a nut beforehand, but I don't think he is now. I think he's been loyal to Patty since they locked it together. You know, all those years ago, they had a bunch of kids. They're still fucking together. You know, so I mean, but nobody talks about that. You know, talk about Mick, you know, and his philandering, or whoever, you know, or Charlie, or Bill Wyman marrying the young girl and his son marrying her mother. If you remember, that was a crazy one. Yeah, so it's always the sensational stuff. It's never the boring, real ones.
It's funny too, because as I listened to that list that you rattled off, it's some of the most successful people career-wise that seem to sort of have their head together and are able to keep a marriage together. I mean, you can't deny Alice Cooper's career. You can't deny Bono. You can't deny John Bon Jovi. I mean, these guys are not only
even go to Gene Simmons.
Yeah,
you
Gene
know,
Simmons
for all
too.
his philandering, he talks like he's a philanderer. He's full of shit.
Well, he does a good game.
He's full of shit. He acts like he's a womanizer. He ain't a womanizer. It's his image. He's supposed to be, Lothario. Although, man, it's fucking embarrassing now. But he's been with Shannon for 30 years or 20, whatever it is, a long fucking time. So, and he's another smart guy. Angus Young.
Yes.
And his wife, over 30 years.
Yeah,
again. Look at these people. Look at the success. Look at the brains of these people and the intelligence of these people and the choice they make. You know, it's a smart choice.
And it's funny, you know, none of those bands are club acts. All of them are arena acts or stadium acts. There's something going on upstairs, which is just beyond business. There's a life smarts, and you have that too. I don't know how much time we have today, but I do have a few more questions.
No, I'm actually good. I boned you today. I've got a studio engineer coming in a few minutes, but my wife can let him in. So keep going.
You know, over the years, we've talked about new Twisted Sister music, and I know you say, listen, you don't need to give people a reason for a pee break, but since then, you've had the Christmas album, you've done Dee Does Broadway, you are putting out new music, but just not sort of under the Twisted Sister name or that rock and roll glam, whatever you want to call it, kind of style. Are you still holding true to that? Forget it. We're not going to do it.
Well, Twisted Yeah, Twisted, no. But I am releasing this spring through Rhino Records a retrospective album.
Oh, good.
And it's going to have some Twisted stuff. It's going to have Widowmaker and Desperado and In Conclusion from Strangeland and Mac the Knife from Dito's Broadway, Cry Little Sister from Van Helsing's Curse, all these failed projects in between. And 3 new songs.
Oh, good. That
I've just recorded, already written and recorded. My first new music in a long time. I'm going to have my solo guitar player. His name is Nick Perry.
Right.
Played with a band called Silvertide. Played with Shine Down. Played with Perry Farrell. He's a young gun, and
Silvertide was a great band.
He is just a fucking dream. I've known him for a long time, and he's a guitar player that I just always marveled at watching him play. And as life came together, he wound up filling in for a solo show. And after the show, my crew and everybody were blowing my phone up, and they said, "You found your Randy Rhoads." Mm-hmm. And I said, "What?" They go, "Nick Perry is your Randy Rhoads." I said, "At 60, I found my fucking guy. I'm done, man. I'm fucking done. Now I find my guy." They go, "Dude, it was amazing. The two of you, he complimented you. But he didn't like, where he worked with you, not against you. It wouldn't clash with you. It wasn't like," he said, he complimented the band. He elevated the entire solo band. It was amazing. And so I went home and I love Nick, and I was talking to my wife and my son, and I was telling them about the weekend, and they said, "Well, why don't you do it?" I said, "Do what?" They said, "Why don't you put out some new music with this guy?" I said, "Are you fucking nuts?" And Suzette said, and my son said, "I haven't seen you talk like this about anything musical in decades." My son said, "Dad, as long as I've lived, I've never heard you talk like this." And Suzette said, "I haven't seen you have any kind of excitement when it comes to music. Unless it's something odd, like Dito's Broadway or something, where it was just like a challenge." He goes, and I said, "Really?" So I call up Nick. I said, "Nick, you got any," because I haven't written new music in decades. I said, "You got any songs?" He says, 300. They're just missing vocals. I said, "You have 300 songs with no vocals." He goes, I can't write melody. So he sends me the stuff, and it just speaks to me. And I call him back and said, "Dude, did you strip out vocals?" Because unlike normally when guitar players write music, if they can't, guitar players hate a vacuum. They've got to fill it with fiddling around. He goes, "No, I just hear where the vocal should go. I just don't hear what the vocal should be." So I'll give you hot off the presses. There's 3 new songs on there. One called one called Rock and Roll Ain't Dead, which my son Jesse wrote. And I've always loved the song, and is my rebuttal to Gene Simmons and the rock war people who say its music seems so dead. Then there's Soul Lady, and then there's To Hell and Back. Those are the 3 new songs that are already recorded, and they will be on the retrospective record, and there may even be a 4th. I'm actually working with a very contemporary writer right now who is on a mission to write me a new anthem that's going to have appeal to new generations, and he's approached me about recording a song that he's working on. So there may be a 4th. So there's going to be new music for the first time, and quite honestly, and I'm really pulling back the reveal of the Great and Powerful Odds. It's really just testing the water.
Right.
Because,
it leaves you with 296.
We were talking about doing an album, and I said, nobody's buying albums, my thing. I said, who knows if anybody's even fucking interested? So we put out this thing, and people react to the new material, and there's a positive reaction. It could lead to a more extensive, because Nick and I just connect. And as a writer, he's very old school, but he's got a lot of new school influences as well. And anyway, so you may hear more Dee Snider solo, and that's really sort of the direction, if I'm doing musically, I'm heading in. Not leaving Twisted Sister. I want to be clear. We've got 4 shows together this year, maybe 5 or 6 now this summer. But I'll be doing a lot more solo shows this year.
Oh, that's great. So you've got 4 new ones coming out potentially. That leaves you with 296 more from Nick. So.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I have 3 that are
confirmed.
three that are recorded and in the can, and I just met with Rhino Records, and we're putting together the whole thing and doing the approach. But this fourth one, this sort of came out of left field, and I don't want to get into specifics of it, but he's a very big writer, but he's not really from the this writer's got he's got Emmys, he's got Grammys, and he has an Oscar for his songwriting. And but at his core, he's a rocker. And we met, and he goes, "Dude, you are iconic, man. This isn't the right freaking song. Could people know you? Young people know you." He says, and the right song could connect you with all those people who know you from reality TV. They know your legend. They know your legacy. They know what you've done and what you're about. But musically, you haven't heard anything new from you that connects with a wider audience. So we'll see what happens with that. That's another, like I said, the challenge of it is appealing to me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. What has kept you as an artist from writing new music? Because I mean, every time I speak to an artist, I go, "Why bother putting out a new album? Because nobody's buying music." And they go, "Dude, I'm an artist. I have to. It's in my blood. I don't care if anybody doesn't listen." And
this is a great question, and I have a great answer. Now, mind you, I've never had a problem writing music, and if you read the book, it's been like a faucet for me, and I could just turn it on and off. So, and truly, I've been blessed in that fashion. But I was interviewing Steve Miller.
Yes.
On VH1, and we were talking, and he's one of those guys who keeps making new music. Right. And I said, why do you keep doing it? He keeps touring. He goes, because I'm a musician, and that's what I do, and I love it, and I'd be doing it no matter what. And it dawned on me, I said, and therein is my answer to my question. And he said, what? I said, I'm not a musician. I'm a rock star. I got into this to be a rock star, not a musician. It was, I didn't even know what a Beatle was when I said I want to be a Beatle. I didn't see them. I saw everybody on the bus stop buzzing about it, and they said, "Oh man, it was great." They said they're rock. And they said, "Oh, everybody was screaming." I said, "I'm going to be a Beatle." And they were like, and I was like, "What is that?" I wanted to be a Beatle before I knew what a Beatle was. So it was what it represented: the fame, the notoriety, the attention, the money. And I was like, "Oh, okay, so you got to be a musician." So I tried playing guitar and singing. I sucked on guitar. Eventually switched to vocals because I'm naturally, a singer by genetics. My mother was a singer. My great grandmother, all my family sang. So anyway, it was just a means to an end. And the fact that I was able to, I wrote songs because, well, not only did I have something I wanted to say, I wasn't happy with the songs that Twisted Sister were doing before I started writing, and I had something I wanted to say, but also it was how I was going to become famous. I had to write songs to do that. You had to have songs, and nobody else was doing them, good ones, so I'm going to fucking write them. So the point being, I wanted to be a rock star. I am a rock star. I didn't feel, once people stopped buying what I was selling, I didn't feel any real need, like I had to express myself. I had the statement to make. I had something that didn't matter if nobody heard my songs. Fuck that. I want people to hear my music, and I don't want it to be flowers in the attic. I don't want these little hidden gems that I only know about. I got a lot of those. They're called Desperado, Widowmaker. I wrote hundreds of songs, hundreds of the recorded songs that are just sitting there on tape. It breaks my heart and makes me angry. That there's no outlet, there's no interest. So even now, I'm going into this again. I'm going, are you fucking kidding me? Listen to your own words. Nobody's buying what old musicians are selling. And I said, fuck it, whatever. I'll give it a shot. But I'm going in there knowing full well the odds are it's going to fall on deaf ears.
Yeah. I don't fully agree. I think a lot of the old.
You don't have to agree. I mean, feel free to debate. I love a good debate.
But I think that was maybe truer by 10 years ago. But I do think sort of the 45-year-olds like myself and older, the 50s, are back into it. And I think festivals like M3 and Heavy Montreal and Sweden Rock are pushing bands like Europe, like Twisted Sister, like Kiss. I think there's a small resurgence, and I do think people are somewhat interested. It's just
Oh no,
how
the
you
interest
get it
is
to them.
there, but the interest is there, but it's for the legacy.
Right.
It's for what
Oh
you're
yeah.
known for, not for the new stuff. I do this whole rap when I do my solo. I do my solo show. I play "The Heart Is a Lonely Hunter,"
Hmm.
and from Desperado, and I talk about how people always ask me what's my favorite song I ever wrote, and I say it's one that was never even released until just a couple of years ago, and blah blah blah. And I said, and I'm gonna play it for you. And I said, now don't fucking go to the bathroom. And everybody starts laughing. And I said, I know. The minute the guy says, I'm doing a new one, you go, hey, I'm going to go take a piss.
Yep.
I said, no, we can see you. I can see you getting up and leaving. And now people are rolling, but it's the fucking truth. I said, so I just poured my heart out to you, told you this is my favorite song I ever wrote, and that it was never released, and it broke my heart that it was released, and I'm going to play it for you now. If you motherfuckers start going to the bathroom, I'm coming to get you. And now people are dying. Okay, but the point is, it's the truth.
It is.
The worst thing anybody can say on stage is, here's a new one. And then my last thing is, if you gotta take a piss, do it during the drum solo like everybody else.
Drum solos and guitar solos are such a waste of time at a show. I mean, I don't know why people bother, but you are right, and I have noticed that when you look at Kiss with the Monster Tour, and you look at Iron Maiden, a lot of these bands are putting out 12 new songs, and they're squeezing in one into the set list or two, whereas 30 years ago, you had a new album, you were playing 6 songs, 7 songs, sometimes 9 songs, so.
Well, it's all you had, but
right.
but do you remember a tour Maiden did like 3 or 4 tours ago in the States?
Yes.
I don't know if it came to Canada as well.
Yes, it did.
Where they wouldn't play any of the old stuff.
Yes, it was horrible.
People were livid. And the band was getting pissed off at the audience, and the band, I mean, I understand Bruce's frustration as a musician, as an artist, because they are musicians and they really obviously have something they want to say and continue to say. But you got to be realistic. Just because you can't will it to be, people. I mean, and I would tell people and I tell this because I yak a lot on the stage. I went to see Led Zeppelin, and they played Madison Square Garden before Physical Graffiti came out. The place nearly emptied when they did Kashmir.
Right.
Nobody knew the fucking song, and it was echoey, and the sound was shit. But that went on for 8 minutes. The place was empty. Yeah. Kashmir. Okay, but if you don't know the damn song, the people are lost. The people are lost. So I'm just painfully realistic, and I'm painfully aware I'm not drunk. I'm not wasted. I can see and feel every single bump and bruise along the way with my audience, which is one of the reasons why I'm as good as I am at connecting with them, because I'm hyper aware. Right. I'm not in a bubble. I'm not sitting there in a haze going, oh man, they fucking love me. No. I see every guy, every woman. I see what's going on out there. And if I'm losing anybody, I know it. And I'm working to get them.
No, and you know what? You're absolutely right. I've had 2 instances like that. I saw that Maiden tour, and people were walking out 3/4 of the way in. They were just saying, okay, it's enough. And Guns N' Roses, I saw them in June, the year that Use Your Illusion came out. When it came out in September, it was 2 months before. And they said, we're going to play all the new album. We're not going to play Patience. You've heard it so many times. And people started leaving. And I mean, they were playing November Rain and You Could Be Mine. And people just went, yeah, but we don't know these songs. And they started leaving. So, you're right. I'll ask you one last thing, because I know you do have other things to do tonight. Dee Snider's Rock and Roll Christmas Tale.
Yeah.
Is that something that you want to make an annual event, and at some point sort of do like Trans-Siberian Orchestra and get that sort of Christmas show going from LA to Milwaukee to Montreal to...
No, the plan is far grander. In order for a Christmas musical to be financially viable, mm-hmm. It has to be in multiple cities.
Right.
Not touring multiple cities, productions, separate entities in multiple cities. It has to be a franchise, because you can't pay for a show like that with 9 weeks or 8 weeks or 7 weeks.
Okay.
So while this year Chicago went very well, and we're now picking our next city and one for the because it's still a work in progress. It's about 90% there. I'm adding I'm changing a song. I'm adding a song. I'm adding a small couple of scenes. Just about 10. Again, even though we've got like a 4.3 out of 5 user rating, and then when we changed, we did some changes midstream, and then we went up to a 4.5 out of 5. So that's a solid user rating, and that's what I'm looking for. Families, audience, the people coming to see it. I've never been one that's gotten the mainstream press to sing my praises. As a matter of fact, I believe the review of We're Not Going to Take It in Rolling Stone was, "What from who?" 3 words. Like shit sandwich.
Who cares?
3 fucking words. Yeah, fuck Rolling Stone. But the point is, my music, my movie, and this show are for people, not for critics. It's and that's who I work for. So anyway, the show went down really well. We're going to do another year with one city, and Toronto is one of the cities that's in the running right now. Toronto, London, Vegas, I think are the 3, and which I'll be starring in the show. But ultimately, we need to have Dee Snider's Rock and Roll Christmas Tale on Broadway, Alice Cooper's Rock and Roll Christmas Tale in Phoenix, Bob Seger's Rock and Roll Christmas Tale in Detroit, William Shatner's Rock and Roll Christmas Tale in L.A., Tim Curry's Rock and Roll Christmas Tale in London, all simultaneously. The part that I play, the narrator / exorcist, because what kind of Christmas tale doesn't have an exorcist in it? That's a role that requires a personality, and any of those kind of people could well helm a show like that. Hell, I was talking to Chris. You know who Chris Jericho is?
Yeah,
the wrestler.
Yeah,
and he came to the show, and he's like, "Dude, give me a sparkly coat, man. I'll do Chris Jericho's Rock and Roll Christmas Tale in Tampa, because this is where these people live, so it gives them sort of a residency. So instead of traveling around the holidays for 9 weeks, Alice is in Phoenix near his home, So, and he goes home at night, which is kind of a nice thing. But anyway, so that's the ultimate vision, and a touring company, and a cast album and all that shit. So the Rock and Roll Christmas Tale is on its way to becoming just another choice for the holidays, along with Christmas Story and Christmas Carol and Elf and The Grinch and all these other musicals that are out there for the holidays. Yeah, Disney on Ice, all these other holidays. This is just another family-oriented but rock and roll, one with a little bit more attitude show. So, and it's off to a good start.
Yeah, I live in Montreal, and I was thinking seriously, do I make the drive to Chicago? It's like 14 hours, and I was like, but definitely something I want to see next year. So
you will have your chance. It's off to the races. Like I said, it played well. It connected with the audience. We were and the audience we're targeting is way wide. It's not a Dee Snider audience or a Twisted Sister audience by any means.
No, of course.
It's a family-friendly show, and even though it's about a heavy metal band who sell their soul, a retro heavy band who sell their soul to the devil for fame and fortune, but find the magic of Christmas instead, it's very much Grandpa can bring the grandkids, and they all loved it. That was, for me, was like my goal, to create something that generationally could be a shared experience. It's where you get that. Usually you go to a holiday film or a holiday show, somebody's bored. Either mom and dad are bored to tears, or little Johnny and Janie are bored to tears. It's rare that you have something where, and I saw it across the board even with my own family, but where elementary school kids, teenagers, mom and dad, and grandma and grandpa, swear to God, all were digging the show. And the big thing that comes from, and this is something I realized that prompted me to go down this road, is that we're at a time in history where virtually every generation was raised on some form of rock and roll. Yep. So for the first time historically, we're in a place where everybody gets a 4/4 beat. Yes. Like my parents, they don't get a 4/4 beat. Like what? They never got rock, and they don't get it. They try to, but they don't. But at this point, grandpa and grandma, mom and dad, the kids, everybody gets boom, 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 boom. They understand that drive, and that's the beat behind the Rock and Roll Christmas Tale, and what the show does. So that's why I think it's connecting on a broader scale.
Yeah, and it's something I definitely want to see. And I'll finish on this because I know you have a million other things to do. Twisted Sister is, of course, part of the bread and butter. It's what made you an icon, I would suggest, by just the imagery and all
absolutely,
that.
Absolutely. I just said that on my radio show. I mean, it put me on the map. Period. I've gone and I built my brand from there.
And exceptionally successfully, I must add. I mean, it's unbelievable what you've done.
I think unbelievable is a pretty good word.
Yeah.
So I sometimes look and go, fucking, how did you fucking survive that crash and burn in the 90s? People wouldn't touch you with a 10-foot pole.
No, like you said in your book, you were
back out.
You were papering cars saying, "Come and see my show," in the 90s and stuff. And
no, worse. I was papering cars saying, "Hire my wife to do makeup for your wedding."
That's right. I remember that. That's
right. And I'm saying it's even worse than that. It was even worse. Nobody. It was. I couldn't get anybody to buy what I was selling, so I had to try and whore my wife out. Yeah.
An incredible crash and burn and sort of Phoenix Rising kind of story. But that aside. Is there a point where you just say, all right, Twisted, we only do 4 or 5 shows a year, but even that, it's enough. I'm done. It was good. Forget it. We're moving on now.
I don't think I can. I don't think that I can be the one to say that. Unfortunately, I love the guys.
Right.
I love our legacy, and I love the band. And
the music.
Even though I might be ready and willing and able to for life, completely disconnected from Twisted Sister, my brothers in arms are not, and this is their, this is where it's part of my legacy, and it is their legacy, So I feel an obligation to them. Even if it's a limited amount of shows, to still wave the flag for Twisted Sister, still keep that brand alive and well, for the benefit of the greater good. It may not be the perfect thing for me as an individual, but for the group as a whole, it makes sense. So like I said, I'm not going to be the one to make that call.
Yeah, and I know you've probably sung "We're Not Gonna Take It" a gazillion times at this point, but there's got to be a certain thrill to get up there and sing a song that is beyond just being a song. It's
absolutely, man, absolutely. I'll sing it another gazillion times, and I'm sure I will. I mean, it's such a to have a couple of songs. As my manager, Phil Carson, says, if you're only going to have 2 hits, make them doozies. Right. That's his exact words. He said, because they become so iconic. More than a few people have said we are the champions and we will rock you of their generation, of the 80s. But to have touched people and to continue to see these songs have that kind of effect, and it's not just a bunch of 40 and 50-somethings jumping up and down. It's teenagers and 20-somethings, and they light up. We do these shows, we do these festivals. They're not only up at Heavy Montreal. It wasn't just a bunch of old people up there.
Oh, not at all.
And you were there. You saw everybody, young and old. They were their eyes were locked, and they were singing loudly. It's so joyful for me to do those songs and to see that reaction. I'm genuinely moved every time.
Yeah,
and it's frustrating, but it does highlight the frustration I feel at new music not getting any kind of, when you have that kind of reaction. It's really tough to be satisfied with just a respectful listen at best.
Oh.
They listen. Oh yeah, that's cool, good song, D. It's just really tough when you've had that kind of reaction. I say, I could see audience react at the speed of sound. When we start playing, we're not going to take it, I Want to Rock, you watch carefully, you see the hands go up and away from front to back as the sound hits very rapidly, and then the same with the smiles, where it's just like smiles and just like sheer freaking joy. And I'll tell you, it's a drug, man. I don't need drugs.
No, you don't.
I got that.
And that song is a battle cry for championship teams, for the disenfranchised who feel that they need that I'm going to keep going spirit. And speaking of Heavy Montreal, I was backstage before your show, and people were sort of joking around, Twisted Sister, ha, ha, ha. And out in the audience, I was getting that same kind of stuff. And then after the set, people were like, what the fuck just hit us? That was incredible. But I mean, it was very palpable. The perception before the show, and I was there the whole day, was, we'll have a couple of beers and see the guys in makeup, ha, ha, ha. And then afterwards, they were like, oh.
You know what? They should have just asked Kerry King. Because as I was heading onto the stage, Kerry was up there with some of the guys in his band. And so I said, what are you doing? He goes, oh, I saw you last time we played together. I told everybody, get your ass up here. You got to see what's going to happen. So Slayer is standing on the side of the stage, just going, oh, watch this. Yeah. These guys, I'm really good at that. And it's, like I said, it's a thing I'm actually best at. And it's a frustration to some people that I don't do it more. They go, how can you do, it's like an artist who and I'm not saying everything I do is that level. It's exceptional. They say, you're a painter and you can paint like that. Why would you stop painting? If you're a surgeon and you can help people and operate on people, why would you stop operating on them? Mm-hmm. And it says nobody. There are few frontmen in your realm that can do to an audience and entertain an audience like you do. Why on earth would you want to stop? Do you want to know the answer?
Well, I'm assuming it's because you don't want to get worn out and then just become a parody of yourself.
It's more that it's two things. One, it's really hard.
Right.
I become obsessive before the shows, and it's like being any kind of athlete. When you're working at that level, it's a point of discomfort.
Right.
So it's not pleasurable when you're running that marathon and you're pushing to break the record and your heart is bursting out of your fucking chest. The pleasure is the victory. The pleasure is succeeding, but the process is torturous. So when you work at that level, it is torturous, and I've painted myself into a corner. You can't beat gravity. Gravity will eventually win, no matter what good shape I'm in. Eventually, we all get pulled into the fucking ground, and I don't want to be on stage the day that gravity beats me. And it will. Look, you'll say, oh, well, not anytime soon, but is it going to be 65? Is it going to be 70? If I stay too long enough, eventually I will go down on that stage, and people will be sad. They will just, because somebody wrote, was actually, I want to give him credit, which guy it was from fucking, which it was Wednesday 13 maybe, or one of the guys from the Murder Dolls. He wrote articles and he reviewed a Twisted Sister concert. He said when reunion shows are good, they make you feel young again. When they're bad, they make you feel old. And I said, I read that review of a Twisted show, and that was when I saw UFO perform when they first reunited with Michael Schenker. Right. It was before Twisted reunited, and I saw them, and I was like a kid. I was in the fucking front, and people going, "Hey, aren't you Dee? Shut the fuck up!" I was just like out there, like I followed them to the next city the next day. It made me feel like I said they looked the same, they sounded the same. It was that good, and I said when I reunite with Twisted, it's got to be that good. People got to feel good about seeing the show, not bad, but you see your heroes up there. And they're old, and they're losing it, and they're shadow their former self, and it makes you feel like shit. Time really has passed. We really are old, So I don't want to be on that stage and be that. I don't want to see a sad face. I want to leave people like I left the people in Heavy Montreal with a smile, going, "What the fucking hey, Twisted fucking Sister." sister.
Yeah.
And by the way, you do know about the documentary that's out there now?
Which one?
We Are Twisted Fucking Sister. Do you know about that?
Yeah. I think JJ had mentioned that.
Yeah, it's at festivals right now. Hollywood Reporter gave it a 5-star review. It really shows what we went through. It's like, most people don't even know we were alive before '82. And in fact, JJ joined the band in '73. He's not the founding member. He joined an existing band, but he's the only guy from that band that's still around. And then, I joined in '76, and we struggled for a very long time.
Yes, you did.
And we, so people should check. It's not on Netflix yet. Eventually, it will be. But if it's any festivals or anything, it's worth seeing. It's a hell of a story.
In fact, I'm looking at the clips right now. It says it's coming soon.
Cool. All right, take care of yourself, man.
Thank you, Dee. Always a pleasure.
Bye.
Bye-bye now. There you have it, folks. My interview with the one, the only Dee Snider. And, of course, Joel, you heard Dee talk about the rock and roll Christmas tale and how he wants to franchise that out and make it popular. A little bit like Rock of Ages, which you were just in, and it just shut down after 6 fantastic years in New York City. Would you ever do Broadway again or some kind of show? Would you do Dee's show? Would you do the Rock and Roll Christmas Tale if asked?
I would definitely be interested in doing any kind of like rock Broadway thing. It was cool while it lasted here in New York. And actually, now that you mention it, when I was actually on set at that metal show and Dee was a guest, and he did mention that show to me. He said, if it comes to New York, would you ever be interested in being in the band? And of course, I was, yeah, man, dude, you're Dee Snider, of course, I'm totally interested in anything you got. And as it would have it, it went up in Chicago. And one of my subs from the Rock of Ages show, Dan Peters, was the guitar player in the band there.
Wow.
So happy for him that he got to work with Dee, good friend of mine. We're both good friends of mine. And yeah, I mean, shoot, if I came to New York, I would totally be into doing that. And like I said, Dee's a pro and a great guy. And any chance to work with him in any capacity is totally groovy with me, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine that if you're involved or if anybody is involved with the Dee Snider Rock and Roll Christmas Tale, it's got to be a, number one run, top of the line kind of outfit, because Dee does great stuff. I mean, Dee, Hey.
Well, I know when Dee came into Rock of Ages, there was always a little bit of a separation between church and state type of feeling with the cast members in the band with Rock of Ages. The actors that all stick to themselves in the band, we just all hang out on our own because we're talking different languages. They're talking about their agents and different shows, and we're down there talking about bands and talking about music. And it was really great to have Dee in the show because anytime there was any downtime, he came down and hung out with the band. we always just thought, man, this guy really keeps it real, doesn't he? He's not up there hobnobbing with the actors trying to talk about theater or anything like that. He just came straight down to us, and we all started talking music. So it was awesome having him around the show there for the time he was in it.
That's fantastic. Now, you're talking about hobnobbing with musicians. You were just out in L.A. at the one, the only NAMM show. Just tell me a little bit about the experience. I unfortunately have never been out to NAMM. So for folks that like me who haven't been out, what were you doing? What was it like? Did you run into any friends? Did you jam with anybody cool?
Yeah, well, now that you mention it, first off, I guess describing the NAMM experience, I mean, essentially for those that don't know, it's just basically where all the music vendors and the merchants set up their booths, and they have all their products for the new year on display. So Gibson guitars or Fender guitars, whoever it may be, everybody has out there for their products for the year. So it gives us all, as musicians, a chance to go say thanks to all the guys that have helped us out with gear and possibly make new connections. And it also has us all sort of passing in the hallway to all say hello to each other and network in the process. And it's definitely sensory overload while you're there, but at the same time, it's also kind of a cool feeling because you really feel like for a minute, wow, there really is still a rock scene because you're walking around and there's thousands of rockers. So you go, it's all right, man. There's still a rock scene. It exists. But yeah, in regards to playing with people, I was lucky to take part in the event Randy Rhoads Remembered on the Friday night out there that the Rhoads family runs in conjunction with Brian Tichy, who's just one of the greatest drummers out there.
Agreed.
Brian Tichy and Joe Sutton run this event and do such a great job. And Brian's been running that Bonzo Bash for years in tribute to John Bonham. And so anyway, I was set up to do Randy Rhoads Remembered now for the second year in a row. And as just, I guess, circumstances would have it, I was out with Trans-Siberian Orchestra and got this really nice email from Jeff Watson from Night Ranger, who I replaced and filled his shoes for 7 years. And Jeff said all these really nice things to me in this email, and I just thought, well, that was really nice of him, man. I mean, I've always thought the world of Jeff, and we just hadn't connected. I just didn't know if it would be awkward or what the exchange would be like. But I've always had nothing but admiration and positive feelings for him. So I just wrote him a bunch of really nice stuff back, and we ended up sort of emailing back and forth a few times. And I said, man, it's a shame we can't hang sometimes. And I thought, well, are you going to NAMM? Like, maybe you and I could, like, pal around a little bit. We'll walk around, and people will be doing double takes and going, what? Those guys are walking around together? What's this all about? He goes, I love the idea. Let's do it. So he said, I'll come down. We'll hang out. And then I said, well, you know, I'm playing at this Randy Rhoads Remembered on Friday night. You should come or take part in it and play. I'll ask Brian Tish. He goes, that sounds like a great idea. I'd love to do that. So Brian added him to the event. He said, shoot, yeah, I would love to have Jeff Watson. And then we both thought, well, why don't we just go like all the way with this? And like, we'll just both like get out on stage together and do a song together just for fun. And just, it's something fun for the classic rock fans and the Night Ranger fans to see, and just give everybody a little thrill. And so anyway, we did it. We went out there and we did a little guitar duel, and we played Over the Mountain, and it was a blast, man. And just gave me an opportunity to get to know Jeff and say thanks for all the hard work you put in Night Ranger. And without all that hard work of him laying the groundwork in that band, my career wouldn't be where it is, and that gig wouldn't have been where it was when I was in it, if that makes sense. So
yep, absolutely.
Just gave me an opportunity to say thank you, and he was nothing but gracious to me, and so it ended up being a really positive thing, and something positive for both him and I, and for the fans, and it was a great time.
Yeah, and I've got to see some of the footage on YouTube, and it's absolutely spectacular. And of course, I'll once again lay the claim that you're the hardest working man in show business these days. You did Rock of Ages, then flew out to NAMM, then instead of flying back home to New York, you stopped off for a scrap metal gig with Kip Winger, the Nelson Brothers, Mark Slaughter. Who else? Bobby Rock? Anybody else?
Yeah, Eric Martin from Mr. Big, Janet Gardner from Vixen. So yeah, those gigs are a blast. They're sort of like just a little bit more of like a put together jam session in a sense. Everybody, we know each other's songs. We go out there and we do a nice job of just playing the songs just tight enough to have it sound like we're rehearsed, and just loose enough to make it feel like a real fun jam session and something special for all the fans. And it ended up being a sold-out show, and it was great. And I'm just honored to share the stage with all those guys. Those are great talents. I mean, Eric Martin he's one of the best rock singers out there.
Absolutely.
And Kip is just unbelievable, man. He just dominated the show.
Kip's great.
Getting to play those songs with him was a blast, because of course I'm also now sharing the Whitesnake guitar duties with Red Beach, his main guitar player. So. It gave us an opportunity to send some selfies over to Reb, and while he's hanging out with David Coverdale right now. So the rock world gets smaller and smaller.
Yeah, but hey, that's what keeps it fun. So you know.
Oh, no, it's a great time, and I'm always honored to just like play guitar for a living in any capacity. But when it's with my heroes and guys that I grew up listening to, it makes it even that much more special.
Are the scrap metal gigs going to be a little more? Are there going to be more? Because I know they're sort of spotty, right? It's like one a month or one every couple of. It's not that.
Yeah,
often.
that's really Gunnar and Matthew Nelson really head that up. They handle all the business end of things, and all of us just kind of do them as schedule permits. So right. I think that's kind of the beauty of it, is that they do change from gig to gig, and it just gives me an opportunity to connect with those guys, and just get to play cool tunes that I like, and hang out with cool people that I like. It's just really a fun hang.
Oh yeah, I got to see one of those. I don't think they've been up to Canada yet, but if I can make that happen, I certainly am, because everybody you mentioned, I'm a fan of. So why not go to one of those shows, right?
Yeah, well, it's that much more special to see everybody playing each other's songs too. And you've got Mark Slaughter hopping up to the mic to sing backups on the Winger stuff, and likewise Kid popping out there on Mr. Big songs singing backups. And it makes it fun for the fans to see.
Great fun, and of course, speaking of great fun, our guest tonight, Dee Snider, great fun. I mean, a Twisted Sister show or a Dee Snider show is, as they say in Quebec, is winner. That's the expression we use up here. Remember to check out DeeSnider.com. And Joel, where do we find you?
Well, again, anybody can go to my .com. I'll spell my name for everybody because it's slightly challenging. Joel, Joel, Hoekstra, Hoekstra. JoelHoekstra.com. You can link to any of my social network good stuff right there, and I'm pretty good about getting back to everybody, so please don't hesitate to write.
Yeah, and in fact, I encourage people to follow your Facebook, because there's always posting pictures of you at NAMM, or you, at this show or that show, or Trans-Siberian Orchestra was what was coming up quite a bit in the last little. I love that stuff. I love when an artist communicates directly with their fans and shows stuff that you wouldn't get anywhere else, sort of that exclusive content, right? It's great stuff.
Yeah, I kind of dig it. I mean, if you're somebody who enjoys the interaction with the fans like I do, I'm grateful that in a way that I haven't gotten to the point where there's any level of success that I can't keep up with that. Yeah. I think it's going to be sad. I mean, if someday that does happen, that will be the sad part, is not being able to actually respond to everybody. But it is, for me, it's fun. I like being hands-on with the fans. Well, and definitely it's really their enthusiasm and their interest in your career that allows you to do what you're doing.
Absolutely. And you'll just have to hire a media team to handle all the Facebook and the Twitter.
That sounds so depressing, though, compared to having the actual person right back, right? But I suppose it's when you're ginormo. It's just absolutely impossible.
When you're Brad Pitt, you have your media team, but hey. Listen, I have more followers than Pretty Boy Floyd, so I'm on my way.
You are on your way. You're bigger than Pretty Boy Floyd.
Which is great, because I love that band. Steve Sex Summers and those, what is it, Wild Angels and all. I love that band. Anyway, if anybody wants to follow me, I'm at Mitch Lafon on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook and all social media. Joel, always a pleasure. We certainly have to do this again soon. And again, I will keep saying, I am so looking forward to the new Whitesnake album. Again, David Coverdale is another one of these frontmen that sometimes people forget, because we're always focused on Steven Tyler and on Paul Stanley, but David Coverdale. Wow.
Rock royalty, baby. Rock royalty. That's what I call David.
Oh, well,
rock royalty.
Absolutely. That's what I call him too. And what I like about David and the albums that he's made in the last few years, there's not been any filler. It's just been killer stuff. So he gets it. He's got his head on his shoulders, and he just makes music that sort of, his old fan base still wants to listen to. So kudos for him, because it's so easy to get disconnected and just go off and do your own thing and think, fans will just...
No, I after going through the process of making a record with him like I have now, I see how extremely hard David still works at it, just to make Whitesnake and keep Whitesnake what it is. And there's a reason he's been as successful as he has been. He works extremely hard. Yeah. That's always it's always the key. Yeah. And David's after it every day. So
yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Joel. We'll do this again soon.
Much appreciated.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Bye now.
All right, buddy.